up, Zone Squads? Today we're going to talk about function notation. What is function notation? A lot of times in high school math we start saying f of x and g of x and k of x. All that means is a different type of function. So think of if you have a room with different machines. You have an f machine, a g machine, a k machine. All these guys represent is telling you to go to that machine and input whatever values for x. So this guy represents what value you're going to input into that specific machine. So if I tell you find f of 3, that's going to tell you go to find the f machine and then input 3 and tell me what the output is going to be. So a lot of times you see this little function machine, right? It's a little machine. And you have some f of x equals some equation. And then what this is telling you is go find it, plug in 3 into this machine, plug in for x, and then see what my output is going to be. So essentially we're going to plug in 3 for x, and then what comes out? 4. So how you're going to write that is f of 3 equals 4. What that means is your point is 3, 4. We do this a lot just creating tables, right? But we're going to try to change the notation now. So f of x, g of x, k of x, it's all that simply means is y. Alright, so back then you used to see y equals mx plus b. Now you're going to see like f of x equals mx plus b, or g of x equals mx plus b, or k of x equals mx plus b. So the part I really wanted to focus on, where kids struggle, is the difference between f of 3 versus f of x equals 3. What's the difference here? A lot of kids struggle with this because they just see that number and they just automatically think, I'm just going to input that in for x. That's not true. So take a look. What does this guy mean? This means when x is 3, find y. Right? What does this guy mean? Well, what did f of x mean? What did I tell you that f of x, g of x, k of x always just represented? Good. It represented your y value. So you could essentially state when y is 3, find x. So they're all both of these are asking two completely different things. This guy's telling you, I have my input, find my output. This guy's telling me, well, I have my output, let's go backwards and find my input. So let's kind of do a couple examples together and figure out how does these two guys work. So your first example is, if f of x equals negative 2x plus 1, and I want you to find f of 1, what is that telling us to do? What does this guy represent? Try to look at your notes. Is this my x value or is this my y value? A good way to remember is f of x is f of 1. Well, what used to be inside the parentheses? It's x. So plug in 1 for x. So that's your input. So when you solve for that, f of 1 equals negative 2 plus 1. F of 1 equals negative 1. This is my answer. Alright, I would write it like this. Just keep writing f of 1, f of 1, f of 1, and solve for that until you get to the end. So what does this mean? This means when x is 1, y is negative 1. So it's 1, negative 1. That's my answer. Okay, let's look at the other way then. Let's say f of x, let's use g of x, equals x minus 4. And I want you to find g of x equals 2. So you look in your notes. What does this mean? Does this mean my input is 2, my x is 2, or does it mean my output is 2? Well, look at your notes. What does g of x represent again? Y value. So when y is 2, find x. That's what you should be asking yourself. So here's g of x, here's g of x. You're going to replace, substitute the whole g of x to 2. A lot of kids just put the 2 here. That's not what we're doing. It's not g times 2, it's g of x. So be careful there. It's a little misunderstanding, misconception a lot of kids get. So 2 equals x minus 4. So you see how I erased this and then substituted 2 in place of the whole thing? That's what we're doing. We're going to solve for it. So we're going to add 4 to both sides, which you guys are pros at. So you get 6. So when y is 2, x is what? 6. So essentially you get 6, comma 2. Okay? That concludes our lesson with function notation. Understand f of x versus f of 3 versus f of x equals 3. Okay? We're going to do our 3 examples right now. Just try your best. That's all I was asked for. Let's get to it. All right. Your first problem. Explain the difference between f of 1 versus f of x equals 1. I want you to just write it out. Okay, if you have to look at your notes, great. Try not to, but if you have to, go back and then try to memorize, try to understand what's telling you. About 30 seconds a minute, go. Alright, what does it mean? What does f of 1 versus f of x equals 1 mean? So f of 1 means what? It used to be f of x. X is 1, so when x is 1, find y. Okay? What does f of x equals 1 mean? Well, f of x always is what? F of x, g of x, k of x represents y. So when y is 1, go find x. Alright? This is going to help you with the next 2 problems. Alright, good job. Alright, your intermediate problem, let's say f of x equals negative 4x minus 2. I want you to find f of 2. So look at the first problem we just did. What does f of 1 mean? Or what does f of 2 mean in this case? And try doing this problem in about 30 seconds to a minute. Try your best. If you get it wrong, it's okay. Our goal is just trying it. So 30 seconds a minute, go. Okay, so what does f of 2 mean? That's the whole concept about this lesson today is what does it mean? Don't try to memorize that, we just do this and this and this. Try to really understand what f of 2 really means. This just means what? When x is 2, find y. So I'm going to plug in. Anywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in 2. Because later on, this is linear. Eventually, we're going to quadratics and other functions. You're going to have to plug it into all, every x there is. So then we get what? Negative 8 minus 2. Let's write f of 2. Let's write f of 2. Negative 10. So what does that mean? 2 comma negative 10. When x is 2, y is negative 10. So check your answers. See if you got it right. Most kids do well on this. They struggle with the next problem. Last problem, g of x equals 3/4 x minus 1. I want you to figure out g of x equals 5. So the first part, your hint is what does g of x equals 5 mean? Is it x equals 5 or is it y equals 5? So in about 30 seconds a minute, try your best. There is a fraction. If you struggle with fractions, watch my fraction video and then go back to this. All right, in about 30 seconds a minute, go. Okay, g of x equals 5. What does that mean? That means y is 5. So here's g of x. All that's g of x. I'm going to substitute 5 in place of that. The whole thing, not just the x. I'm going to say, instead of g of x, I'm going to write 5. Substitute it in. I'm going to solve for x. What's my first step? Start from the outside in. Add 1, so you have 6 equals 3/4 x. How do you get rid of a times 3/4? Most kids will say divide by 3/4, but they get stuck there. They can multiply by the reciprocal. And then the 3's and the 4's cancel out, so you have x equals. That cancels out with that, and you get 8. So what does that mean? When x is 8, y is 5. Check your answers. Try to really understand what f of 1 versus f of x equals 1 mean. That's going to help you solve these problems. One of it is x is going to be given, find y. The other one is the y is going to be given, find the x. Alright, so that concludes our lesson with function notation. Hopefully this video has helped you. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Turn on notifications. Let's get ready for some videos. Good job.